This was supposed to be a simple press conference. Instead, it exploded into chaos. A first lady promotes a personal film at an official event, shuts down reporters, and refuses to answer questions tied to one of the darkest scandals in modern history. Cameras kept rolling. Reporters didn't back down, and what happened next raised more questions than answers. Stay with me, because this story is darker than you think.
What was supposed to be a routine press event quickly turned into a tense and controversial moment when Melania Trump faced unexpected and uncomfortable questions in front of the media. The press conference, which she herself called, immediately raised eyebrows. Many questioned why the event was even happening in the first place, especially given the sensitive circumstances surrounding it. The stated purpose of the event was to recognize the release of 2 hostages who had recently regained their freedom after a long and traumatic captivity. These individuals had reportedly spent more than a year in confinement, and their return was meant to be the central focus of the gathering. However, the tone of the event shifted almost immediately when Melania began referencing her new documentary film during her remarks. She spoke emotionally about meeting the freed hostages, describing their reunion as deeply moving. She mentioned that the meeting had been recorded and that viewers could see this moment in her documentary. This statement did not go unnoticed. To many observers, it sounded less like a tribute to the hostages and more like a promotional plug for her film, delivered during an official public event. That perception triggered sharp criticism from members of the press. One reporter directly questioned whether it was appropriate to use an official setting funded by taxpayers to promote a personal film project. The question cut through the room and clearly caught Melania off guard. She pushed back, insisting that the event had nothing to do with promotion and that it was solely about honoring the released hostages. Despite her denial, the tension in the room was unmistakable. The issue wasn't just about a movie mention, it was about optics, ethics, and the line between public service and personal branding. Repeating references to the documentary only intensified scrutiny and made it harder to separate the humanitarian message from personal promotion. As the press conference continued, reporters shifted toward even more sensitive territory. Questions arose regarding Melania's past associations, including inquiries connected to Ghislaine Maxwell. At that moment, her tone changed sharply. She shut down the line of questioning, stating clearly that she was not there to discuss her past or any related topics. She emphasized that such questions were inappropriate for the occasion. The refusal to engage only fueled further speculation. For critics, the contrast was striking. On one hand, personal achievements and projects were openly mentioned. On the other, questions about controversial connections were firmly blocked. This inconsistency became a major talking point after the event ended. The pressure did not stop there. Another reporter raised questions about her claimed communications with foreign leaders, specifically regarding humanitarian efforts involving children affected by war. When asked whether concrete progress had been made, Melania responded vaguely, saying that discussions were ongoing and that she hoped for success soon. No details were provided, leaving many unanswered questions. By the end of the press conference, what remained was not a message of celebration, but a cloud of controversy. Social media clips of the event spread rapidly, with critics accusing Melania of exploiting a serious humanitarian moment for personal gain. Supporters defended her, arguing that sharing her work was natural and that the event was being misrepresented. What is clear, however, is that the press conference failed to deliver clarity. Instead of focusing solely on the freed hostages, it opened the door to broader debates about accountability, transparency, and the use of public platforms. The event became less about the people who suffered and more about the questions that were left unanswered. And this was only the beginning. What followed next would raise even more serious concerns and intensify public scrutiny in ways few expected. As the fallout from this press conference continues, one thing is becoming impossible to ignore. What should have been a moment centered entirely on human suffering, recovery, and dignity instead turned into a flashpoint of controversy, unanswered questions, and public mistrust. The refusal to address serious concerns, combined with selective messaging, has only deepened skepticism among the public. The issue here goes beyond one event or one documentary. It raises a much larger question about accountability and transparency when powerful figures use official platforms. When the media asks uncomfortable questions, the public expects clear answers, not deflection. Silence, avoidance, or vague responses only fuel suspicion and demand closer scrutiny. Connections, past associations, and conflicting narratives do not simply disappear because they are inconvenient. When names reappear in documents, when emails resurface, and when timelines don't align, people notice. And once the public starts asking questions, those questions don't just go away, they grow louder. What made this moment especially striking was the contrast. Emotional storytelling was allowed, personal projects were mentioned freely, but when the conversation shifted to documented relationships and serious allegations tied to global scandals, the door was slammed shut. That contrast is what continues to haunt this story. This is why independent analysis matters more than ever. Not headlines crafted for comfort, not narratives designed to distract, but facts laid out clearly so people can decide for themselves. The truth does not need protection, only lies do. And this story is far from over. More documents are being reviewed, more connections are being examined, and more questions are coming that cannot be ignored forever. Whether answers are given willingly or forced into the light, one thing is certain: public scrutiny is not going away. If you want to stay informed, if you want to understand what powerful people don't want discussed, and if you want the darker side of global stories explained without filters, then stay connected. Subscribe to World Dark Files. Here, we track the stories others avoid, follow the evidence wherever it leads, and bring hidden truths into the open. Because in a world full of noise, knowing the truth is power.